Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Fatima Merchant and I'm the room host for today. Welcome. A few housekeeping notes. Please put your devices on silent. If you have any issues with your headset, please raise a hand and someone will come and help you. Welcome to today's session on how CommBank supercharged AWS Well-Architected reviews with GenAI at scale. This is the level 200 session, and it's my pleasure to welcome Rovan on the stage today. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining our session. How many of us here have read Well-Architected review in the last 6 months or so? Yep. How long did it take you? At average 3-4 hours, yeah? Maybe some of you here as well in the room wanted to run a well-architected review on your workload, but you might not have the resources or time to be able to do so. What if I tell you that you can run well-architected review at a scale on all of your workload and you don't need that much time or resources anymore? And this is actually a reality now. So my name is Rovan. I'm a principal technologist. I work for AWS and I mainly work with financial sectors and large enterprise to help them operate their workload in the cloud. And I'm pleased to be joined today by Yuri, General Manager of Cloud Services from Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Before we get into well-architected automation and CPA story, let's just set the scene first and talk about the workload lifecycle. And there's no better analogy to represent workload life cycles than building bridges. You'll find both of them share a lot of aspects on the flywheel of design, build, operate, and evolve. So if you're building a bridge, you want to have a solid structure to support the bridge. You want to prioritize the safety of the citizens, right? Same thing for the workload. You want to make sure you have the right architecture to support your application as it grows. And you will always prioritize the privacy and security of your data. And if we move to the operate stage, you will find bridges require regular maintenance to maintain its longevity, right? Similar thing for workloads. It requires constant monitoring, patching, and updates, so it maintains the security and the level of performance over time. And if we move to the evolve stage, you will find bridges designed to withstand changes in weather conditions, traffic patterns, right? Same thing in workloads. The best workloads are designed or structured to adapt for user changes in their patterns, changes in the traffic load, and also technology advancements. So in essence, both the bridges and workload share a lot of aspects when it comes to careful planning, monitoring, and operational aspects and adaptability to maintain efficiency over time. So if you're going to build any workload, regardless of its functional, it has to have 6 capabilities. These capabilities are security, reliability, cost, sustainability, operations, and performance. And in order for you to embed these capabilities in your workload, whether you're designing, building, or operating, you're going to use AWS Well-Architected framework. So AWS Well-Architected framework is a comprehensive framework that's designed to help architects build a secure, resilient, and highly performing infrastructure that can host your application on AWS. So it consists of 6 pillars, the one I've mentioned earlier, and on the screen, each of these pillars have design principles, best practices, and also a set of questions that help you evaluate these workload and improve its architecture. The framework itself was built based on AWS extensive knowledge by all of our customers and partners across a variety of industry, and use cases. And the great thing about the Well-Architected, it has an approach to evaluate, consistent approach, evaluating the workload and provide you recommendation and also point out any potential issues so you can mitigate it. So, as I mentioned earlier, each of the well-architected pillars have best practices and design principles. And if we have a closer look into one of the pillars here, which is security, I've pointed out one of the best practices, which is infrastructure protection. Infrastructure protection, as an example, designed to help you look into the security from a holistic point of view. So you need to, and it's recommend you to apply security on all layers. So you all layers of network, so you have security in depth. It also will guide you through how can you minimize your attack surface. And also how you manage vulnerabilities, so you safeguard your workloads. And you will always find the best practices recommend certain services that can help you implement these recommendations as you go, and I have included them here on the right-hand side. So now we established that in order to build a well-rounded workload, you gotta embed these 6 capabilities that the well-architected review and well-architected framework cover. So let's hear from CPA about their journey embedding well-architected review in the design and build, and please welcome Yuri to the stage.
Thank you, Rovan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuri Belenky, and I run Cloud Enablement team at CommBank. Before I go into the details of our well-architected journey, I would like to briefly touch upon CBA technology strategy. CBA technology strategy consists of 4 pillars. The first one is organization prime for delivery, which generally is about our ways of working, including DevSecOps. Then the next pillar is about modernizing our technology stack, including cloud migration and modernization. The next pillar is about the goal of being leading bank in AI and Gen AI areas. And then security, resilience, and reliability. Through the next slides, you will see how these 4 pillars are informing our design decisions on our well-architected journey. A bit of a historical context. When we started our cloud journey, like many other companies, we had 2 different approaches to this cloud journey. One is a central IT driven, and the second is application team driven. The first approach has a very strong control posture because it is the central IT team which controls cloud almost as they control the data center. The downside of this approach is that this team often lacks business context. And because they lack business context, they are slowing down innovation. So this approach is not really good for cloud migration at scale because it lacks speed. The second approach is approach when there are a few very technically savvy application development teams which are pretty much driving the cloud migration and modernization from ground up on maybe a very thin enterprise platform. So with this approach, speed of innovation is not a problem, but there is a lack of reuse. There are no common controls, or very few of them, no guardrails, no accelerators. And as such, the result of this approach is the same. This approach lacks speed in a cloud migration situation at scale, and then you need to find something different. So our approach was to create cloud platform which we will give to our application development teams. These application development teams will still have enough level of flexibility, but the platform will implement common components like controls, guardrails, and accelerators. And as you can imagine, with this approach, well-architected will be a really good fit. Let's look at how. First, you need to train your application development teams. You need to use AWS trainings, design workshops, reviews, everything what you can, because they have flexibility and they need to know how to use this flexibility in a smart and efficient way. Then we have Cloud Pipeline, which tells us about the most important applications which are coming next. And that allows us to plan upfront well-architected reviews, formal well-architected reviews. And the last but not least, we integrated well-architected tools into our platform. Let's look into specifics of this integration and into our learnings. The first situation is, well, consider when you are doing well-architected review. This review is workload specific. When you do many reviews, all of these reviews are workload specific, and you could not see common themes. And these common themes is a great opportunity for you to build up your platform by addressing common risk through common controls. So we shared this opportunity with our AWS account team and with well-architected team. And they came back with a feature which is called consolidated reporting. The second interesting challenge is related to the situation when you build your applications on top of a platform, then many questions from your well-architected review are actually answered the same way, because they are not answered by workload, they are answered by the platform. And if you do every time the same questions, you are not using your time efficiently. So we discussed this situation with AWS, and they came back with a feature which is called review templates, and this feature addresses exactly that. It allows you to pre-fill answers to some of the questions. And the last interesting tweak I'd like to focus on here is when you have a cloud migration at scale, not all applications are the same. Some you need to do deep modernization. Some you just do light touch and then you move them to cloud. It means you can say you have different classes of the migration. When you have different classes of the migration, you want to focus your well-architected review differently. It would be great if you can associate the focus of your well-architected review with the type or class of the migration. And AWS came back with a feature which is surprisingly called profiles, which is exactly that. It allows you to define profiles of your cloud migration. At the next slide, I have QR codes for these features. I will be speaking slowly here, and we'll have a sip of water while you can use your phones to scan these QR codes. Now let's move to the examples. My first example is Murex. Murex is a CBA main trading platform. It supports end-to-end trading process for a range of financial products. And as such, Murex is a business-critical application for CBA. When we come to the cloud migration, we have a certain technology context which was coming from the current Murex environment. And I will touch on a few things. So first, Murex as an application has two distinct phases. Phase number one is a day phase when you do all the trades, and this phase is characterized by high number of database activity and IOPS requirements. Then there is the end of the day phase when you need to perform a large number of small but complex calculations which are based on the day trades. And in our on-premise environment, this end of the day phase started to take significant time. It is very important that end of the day phase will finish before actually the next business day starts. So that's number one. Number two aspect of our pre-migration context was that our development teams were blocking each other on a few development environments, which were complex to create, and that was slowing down our development process. So with that technology context, we came with the following requirements. First of all, we had to solve for the performance problem, and we had to come up with an environment which we will have enough capacity for the future business growth, but also which we will not over-provision. Second, we needed to focus on the development environment contention problem, and we had to cater for a number of use cases like integration testing, performance testing, individual feature development. So the next slide has well-architected review focus for pre-migration review and post-migration review. I will not have enough time to go through every item, so I will focus on just a few. So in pre-migration part, we focused on deployment automation, and deployment automation brought us a number of benefits. First, it helped us to solve development environment contention problem. Creating development environments became really easy. Then it improved our quality of release process because change process became very consistent. We removed all the manual steps, and as such, it reduced risk for the change-related incidents. Now let's take a look at the right side of this slide. It's right. As you can see, the focus is very different. And that's probably where I come to what I see as the most important takeaway from this presentation. You need to make sure that you do well-architected reviews for each phase of your application lifecycle. It's not enough to do it just once and be done, because focus is very much dependent on the phase of a lifecycle. What was our focus in the post-migration step? First, I wouldn't say we realized, it was pretty obvious, but we had to work on it, that production-like environments, they need to be scaled down. Like performance environment doesn't need the same resilience, or integration environment doesn't need the same performance. So we focused on right-sizing IOPS, on right-sizing databases, on right-sizing compute, on choosing the right storage level for the right environment. Then the second thing we focused on is on educating our application development teams to use scaled-down environments. And in the situation when scaled-down environment is not an option and they must use a scaled-up environment, then they need to learn share these environments again. My next example is actually not an individual workload. It is our award-winning DevOps hosting platform. It is usually shortened as DHP, and I will be using this name for the rest of my presentation. Consider that you have more than 200 services in AWS, and you can often arrive to the same outcome in a multitude of ways. But we want to make sure that we arrive to the same outcome in the same way, because this approach will make your cloud migration at scale faster. DHP addresses this objective by providing an opinionated platform to our application development team, opinionated hosting platform. How? DHP is a collection of cloud blueprints which address architectural archetypes we want to support. But it's not just that. It also integrates with other enterprise systems, like it integrates with observability platform, and it defines the default metrics to collect. It integrates with a certificate management system, and it provisions certificates for the workloads on behalf of these workloads. It provides blue-green deployment, so there is a wide range of capabilities. It's not just doing provisioning, it also does day 2 operations. What do I mean by saying day 2? It does not just provision certificates, it also renews certificates when the time comes. It also can implement backup restore testing for the database. And this nature of DHP allows us to implement controls on DHP which otherwise would be difficult to implement either on the engineering tooling or CI/CD side or on the underlying cloud platform. Of course, doing that makes any mistake in DHP very costly. If we make a mistake in DHP, then it will be replicated across a number of applications. And that makes our design of DHP capabilities really aligned to AWS Well-Architected best practices. Just a few examples. Feature which is called tagging and patching ensures that workloads actually follow operational best practice for patching management. Blueprints enforce auto-scaling where it needs to be enforced to follow one of the resilience best practices. And certificate management actually maps directly to the certificate management best practice from AWS Well-Architected. And as you can imagine, here, preview template feature comes in very handy. With that, I would like to invite Rovan back on stage.
Right, so Yuri shared with us how CPA embedded Well-Architected into the build phase and the operate, or what he referred to as day 2 operation. Now let's talk about the evolve stage, which is the last stage of the flywheel of any workload. At the evolve stage, what you want to focus on is refinement. You want to find a balance between quality, speed, and cost. So you probably want to look into any operational procedure that you want to streamline. And with Gen AI and AI, that becomes quite easy and very kind of fast to achieve. So we worked with CPA and they came to us with feedback about streamlining well-architected review across their workload because they were having troubles running well-architected review at a scale. So I would like to demo the solution to you, but before I do that, let's just go through how this started.
So how it started. Normally, well-architected would take 3-4 hours, and usually probably 10 to 15 subject matter experts, both from AWS and from the customer, so in this case from us. And any of you who tried to create a 4-hour meeting with 10 to 15 very busy individuals know how much of a logistic nightmare it is. So we came back to AWS and we asked them, is there any way we can use AI and Gen AI to optimize time of our and your SMEs?
So we took the feedback, and in AWS we like to work backwards from customers, and we realized in order for CPA or any other customers really to scale well-architected reviews across all of their workload, not just the most critical ones, we need to do something different. We need to get Gen AI here involved. So what we've done here, we built an application that I would like you to go through it here with me, the workflow, where if you are in the design phase, you probably have a diagram. Or even if you are in a build phase, already build the workload, you probably have a CloudFormation template or Terraform file that contains the resources you want to deploy for this application. So you upload this CloudFormation template or the diagram to the well-architected infrastructure analyzer applications that we design for CPA. And there are also something else that we added. The CloudFormation template or the diagram have the services, have the resources, the configuration, but it won't really have the context about your procedures. Meaning, What do you do, for example, from cloud financial management practices? What do you do from an operational practices? Let's say if your cyber team giving you certain checklists. So we provided the functionality where you can upload any of these documentation about your standard procedures that you cannot find in a diagram or cloud formation template to the application. And once you upload that, you go and then choose, do you want to run full well-architected or certain pillars of the well-architected, or maybe you would like to choose one of the well-architected lenses. And I've added here the financial sector lens in respect for CPA. So you do so, and what happens in the background, the application take all of the documentation you uploaded and the diagram or the cloud formation template, and Bedrock will map all of these resources and documentation to the well-architected best practices. And then it will come back with a report. The report will go and tell you, these are the best practices that you adhere to, and these are the best practices you haven't adhered to, and here's what is the recommendation you need to do. So let's demo that. So over here, this is the interface of the applications. There has been a little bit of updates since, so you might have a little bit of a niche interface than this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to upload a cloud formation template from my machine to the application. And I'm going to choose the security pillar. So I'm not going to run the entire pillars, I'm just going to choose the security. As you can see, it identified 60 security issues. And I could go there and check the recommendation in the public web page. From there, I can go and download these recommendations, and where I have lacked to adhere to the well-architected review, and you can find this in the CSV file in front of you. And I can choose to complete the well-architected framework here, the assessment, or do it later. And as you can see, the security is the only pillar that has completed. And from there, I can also download a PDF file that's similar to the report that you get from the well-architected tool in the console. And we have realized, after we built the solution for CPA, that it's not just Commonwealth Bank who needed that. We realized most of the customers actually been asking us to try to speed up the well-architected reviews and to try to streamline it, so instead of running it in just the most critical workload, run it across all of the workloads. So we uploaded the solution into AWS GitHub, and you can download it here from the barcode I've included above. Cool. So Yuri have walked us through how important to embed well-architected review in all the life cycle of the workload. Pre-migration, post-migration, when you design, when you build, and how critical that is to adhere to the best practices so you have a well-rounded workload. And I hope that inspired you to go and do the same. And if you would like to streamline the well-architected review across all of your workload, feel free to download the solution from there to help you run these reviews against all of your workload. So I would like to thank you for listening. Hopefully this session has been informative for you. Please fill in the survey. Yuri and myself will be outside if you have any questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.